So then, we are back with more understanding from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage, so then we can understand the time of the end. Mashiyach the prophet then comes out to many of the understandings of the time of the restoration of the holy cities of the Mashiyach, where then there are a couple of situations going on at the same time. Shadow prophetic events, very important understanding from Hebrews 10. When you read, try to understand then the section of it related with the prophetic shadow events, because when we read the instructions mostly related with the 23rd chapter of Leviticus, comes then the substance of the feasts themselves versus then the prophetic events of the future. As we understand, the feast itself already taking place a long time ago. The Mashiyach completed the spring feast. Then later came the time of restoration, per order. 1,000 years of the Mashiyach already gone, the other 1,000 of Nahashatan is gone, and we are during the time of the dragon, until prior of the starting of the sound of the shofars, when then the autumn feast starts. Autumn feast then is related with as then vengeance. Then when the autumn feast then starts, then is no longer dragon but then destroyer. So that's why when you read the 20th chapter of Galah or Revelation, you find then devil, you find then dragon, you find then destroyer, you find then serpent, each of those then with a specific understanding per times and seasons. We never were brought up during the times and seasons. In fact, the calendar is scandalized, is not from the original manuscript. The number of months, the name of the months, when it starts, when it ends, the starting of the month, the whole situation related with the original manuscripts were then scandalized. We must get acquainted ourselves how to read the time, how to read the season, as per then the barley aviv, the starting of the year, as then per the lunar view of every month, and then the holy mikra, or the holy feasts. So then we understand the Mashiyach then is returning in autumn. It is very ridiculous when you go to those churches and the Mashiyach then is coming at any moment. Have you ever heard of it? Oh, because the Savior, he's coming at any moment. Said who? The understanding from the original manuscript states very clearly during the time of the autumn feast, then there is the sound of the shofar. So has the Mashiyach lost the track of the season where he's coming back? So the Mashiyach is not coming at any moment. He's coming at a specific time during a specific feast. So then from the viewpoint of the Mashiyach, then we understand tabernacling. The returning of the holy cities, then we find a time of restoration. And then during this time also the layer of the Gentiles, because when the Mashiyach was then on Mount Gerizim, transfiguring himself, what did he do? He went through the opening of the seals. The seals are already opened, because then the sound of the shofar is after the opening of the seals. The Mashiyach came down from Mount Gerizim, and then he was saying, be aware of the sound of the shofar, because the autumn feast was the next. So the Mashiyach prepared whatsoever had to be prepared for the world then to go through the 1,000 years of the Mashiyach, the 1,000 years of the deceit, then a period of time of the restoration, and then the starting of the vengeance, or then autumn feast, where only the Creator himself is in charge. So then the rest of us, we are going to be resting in the Mashiyach if we are obedient and if we produce fruit. The rest of the world is lost, because no tabernacling, no salvation. So then, what is then the layer of the Gentiles? Because the Mashiyach came down from the mountain Gerizim, And he gave the people then 2 Yom creation days, 2 Yom days, 1,000 years each. The Mashiyach was born 4999. The computer was able to make the calculation on reversed and was able to find then when the star was shown in the sky. There was then a recording of it, plus the census of the time, the lunar view of every month, and the eclipses, and then the number of seasons, plus the time of his ministry, precisely 490 days. So then we understand this factor. But the Mashiyach gave them 2 days of Yom of his time, indicating 2,000 years. He was born 4999. He was placed on a pole 5032. Then he was, after he came from the dead, he was then for some time, around 40 days with his people, indicating what's coming in the future, obviously the autumn feast. And then he ascended. Thus then his 1,000 years started then with time of transition from the first and second tabernacle services, where the Mashiyach then had taken place of his father, the creator of the heavens and the earth. Then the Mashiyach was given the authority. Then 1009, we understand from the regular calendar, we understand then 1009 then was the destruction of the tomb. It was never destroyed before. It was the first time that the tomb was destroyed. Thus then started the time of deceit. Then the other 1,000 years until 2009, we find ourselves then outside of the 1,000 years of deceit. So then we are during the time of the dragon, no longer deceit. But then, what other factors indicate what's coming then in the future as far as the Gentile level is concerned? Gentile level is related then with the Ishmaelites. That's why then Ishmael came first, and he was preparing the path for the brother, the second brother. So then we find then yet the Ishmaelites are becoming more aware of their role during the time of the restoration, and then later we find then prior of the time where they are going to be involved with the plan, we are then the base of the statue from a person, Daniel the politician, explaining then the base of the statue, the iron does not mix with the clay. But then the Mashiyach, when he complemented what Daniel had prophesied, indicated not nations. He indicated the understanding of freighters. The Mashiyach then complements what Daniel had started. So then what do we understand from the time then where nations are going to lining themselves up with freighters? Because the Mashiyach already gave the answer. During the time of restoration where we are at, after 2009 until prior of the starting of the autumn feast, the period of time of restoration of the holy cities, we find then the Gentile level preparing itself or preparing the nations for the autumn feast. How gets it done? Precisely as the Mashiyach has said. Then the freighters of the earth would be in charge. But wait a minute, did not Daniel say regarding the nations would not be adhering to each other? Exactly. And they did not, because the Eurozone is breaking. We can expect the Eurozone then to be dismantled, because it was generated during the time of deceit. We are no longer during the time of deceit. We are during the time of restoration. And the Creator is not going to use any of the 1,000 years of deceit as understanding of the time of restoration where He included the Gentiles. Have this in mind. The Creator is the author of this planet. He made it. He is in charge. The world was giving a scoundrelized time, so then the Creator would be absolutely clear from any pointing your finger at him, saying, oh, he never gave time to test the others' theories. Oh yes, he did. 1,000 years he had to put up with the junk of this planet, and he endured. Now he's going to show what he's going to do. So then the prophet Mashiyach explained then the returning of the holy cities, plus he said even the heathen would take care of their vineyards and would take care of their flocks. He's explaining then Gentiles. The Creator has a hold of the entire planet. So if those governments out there, they are thinking they are somebody from the time of the scoundrelized deceit, they are very wrongly mistaken. Because they were born during a time where the ignorance of their parents and subsequent grandparents and so on and so forth until 2009, they were not aware of it. But then the Creator is in charge. But then, people sometimes they walk around as big shots and governments and such, and they want to be in charge, but they are no longer in charge. I don't care if they have a document stating they are senator or governor or president of any country. Makes absolutely no distinction whatsoever. Because the Creator has prophesied through His prophet via Mashiyach, where then tabernacling is returning as per plan, and the Gentiles were included. However, the Gentiles are going to be included per His plans. And He has decided of having then China as the factory of the planet, a system coming where then each person can become his banker, her banker, his investor or her investor, and being responsible. A very profitable system, where then the midman, always a scoundrel, won't be scoundrelizing somebody else's money anymore. So people are going to recognize the hands of the Creator. And then He's going to show what it means tabernacling. Because the entire control of this planet went back to His hands. And the control of the rain, and the control of the seas, and the control of the animals. The whole situation is back into His hands. He made it. So then don't think we are in this world only doing whatever we want. Oh no, we are absolutely not. It used to be like this for these last 1,000 years, but no longer. Because the Creator has stated very plainly, Mashiyach the prophet, 61st chapter, and the returning of the holy cities, then even the heathen would understand His mighty plans. However, He does not want politics of the world. He has His own politics. And His politician, Daniel, already prophesied a long time ago. And the Creator has decided, since the freighters are responsible, they maintain records, and they are prompt, the freighters are going to be in charge. Governments are secondary. And if the governments, they don't line up with the system, they are going to be absolutely non-existent. Because the Mashiyach said, give to the government what belongs to the government, give God what belongs to God. What he was saying is this: if you want some organization in your country, make sure you then get taxes. He meant what he said, and he said what he meant. However, during the time of the restoration, prior of the coming of the system, because then the freighters are going to be in charge, how can a person make a link with government and freighters? Very simple. Labeling. Well, the governments of the world, they don't have much knowledge in maintaining records That's precisely what they must learn. Every time there is a label printed, taxes must be deducted. And there are some very bad news as far as the economy of the world. Because the Creator very wisely, He is shaking the world from its governing system. And He is the best. He never made a mistake. And won't be the first time. So then, since the Mashiyach already gave the answer regarding then the freighters, what would be then the obvious answer? Make sure then the governments are lined up with the freighters. How do they do this? The understanding is so profound. Every time there is a label printed for either a container or a box or a parcel, then make sure taxes are deducted. Isn't that profound? For some people, it's genius. So for those people, for instance, they are thinking themselves only because they have a piece of paper and they go to a building where there is air conditioning, talking around, and freighters are in charge. Only give a bit of more time, the next 36 months. Because the Creator, He is very wise. He gives plenty of time so that nations can understand from where He's coming from. So people then, He did not warn the world. Oh no, wait a minute. IMF already gave, for instance, our country 2 years ago. The calculation was then 5 years and then our monetary system would ruin. 24 months is gone. We have 36 months. It is plenty of time. There are some articles in the newspaper and then in the computer or on the web where you find then the financial crash in this year. Don't be concerned with it. The world yet is not educated in what the Mashiyach has planned. And the plan is in line with what IMF has said 2 years ago. 5 years, we have 36 months to get then our taxation exact. Every time there is a box with a label, a parcel must be described and also properly taxed. And the task is not complicated. Working with the freighters, they already have the computerized system, scan system. Taxes can be deducted very easily. But then the question is the government lazy? Yes, they are. They are lazy. So then later don't complain, because God has abandoned. Oh no, He has not. He has a very nice memory. So then, the Mashiyach gave the answer, and we have then truly 36 months to get taxation in exact standards. It's quite a bit of work. But then when the governments are lazy, they provoke these ups and downs. First, then they understand that there is 36 months, and then when the government is in trouble, they don't have any novel to play with, then they begin to come up with the crazy ideas. Now, let's make sure we understand the previous calculations of IMF, and then next 36 months, let's make sure our taxation then is exact. Then we are able to balance our economy. Because thus far, what the government wants is going to the Ozarks. They're going to stick themselves down there as reptiles. Not to disgrace the name of reptiles, but unfortunately this is what the government has in mind. But then the Mashiyach already gave the answer. The freighters are going to be in charge. So the Ozarks won't be used. Because roads must be maintained, basic service must be active, and the freighters won't let. because the Mashiyach said so. The freighters are going to be in charge. So then let's make sure we understand and get rid of those understandings of the 1,000 years of deceit. And the Creator meant 100%. What you have learned as far as church doesn't exist. There is no Mashiyach outside of tabernacling. Church was concocted because of the midmen. As we understand, when the cities were around after the time of Yohanan, 100 years after the ascension of the Mashiyach, there was a transitional time. Then the first holy city was established during the time of Yohanan. And then Yohanan, with the example he had, he sent then the documents of Hebrews to those 7 cities in Asia Minor, because they were in sin. Then they got straightened out. From then on, more cities showed up. And then developed a relationship with the holy cities and then Gentiles. But then the Gentiles would not pay taxes. Same problem there was during the time of the Mashiyach. Always not paying taxes. Then those people over there, they would congregate, but not to talk about the Mashiyach. They would talk about their deals. But then they would not pay taxes and they would earn a lot of money. And then, inspectors would come around, try to find out what goes on. Then obviously the inspector very wisely said he would want to be part of the deal, and he was in the midst of it, and then he would discover they were not paying taxes. Every man jack of you in jail. Welcome then to the midman, financial institutions, and church. But then the congregates said, oh, let's talk about it, We are all in this to the government. You take 90% for yourself, you'll pay 10. Mix up religion with deals and crap. And the Creator got nothing to do with it. He wants His people to do tabernacling, and the world with a specific relationship with tabernacling. And He already has set a country to become then the factory of the world, and the other countries can have the benefit from. A simple computer, initial capital, and you can invest. As much as you want, day and night. Only be responsible. And the governments must line up themselves with the freighters, because the Mashiyach already gave the answer. In chapter 1:8 of Galah, or Revelation, belongs to our time. Because when you read the content of chapter 1:8, there is no relation with the sound of the shofar. What can you deduce? Doesn't belong there. The translators then did not understand. Has to have a relation with the shofar and then the consequences of the sounding of those shofars. First shofar, then later becomes the cup. Second cup. Third shofar, third cup. So let's understand there is plenty of time to work in our economy. But then the Mashiyach said, freighters. We must lock on then freighter and do not release freighters. Then we retrieve from the last understanding of the Mashiyach, and then we develop steps of formation. First then comes then the understanding of freighter, then the government, and then labeling and taxation. Precisely what the Mashiyach said, give to the government what belongs to the government. 10% belongs to the government. So then plenty of time to do the work as per instructions. And then we understand further than tabernacling. That's for later. Please stay tuned.